Welcome back to Live What You Love. So today we're going to be making a tillering tree with one 2x4, couple screws, super cheap. Just jump right in. We've got a 2x4 behind us and the vise already. We got the tape measure sitting on top of it. We're going to cut two 3-foot sections. We got two 3-foot sections doubled up right here in the vise. Now we're gonna take a bunch of screws. We're gonna join these two. We just got these two joined. A couple of the screws are barely sticking out the back. So we're gonna take a metal file, just kind of grind those off so there's no sharp points or anything. We're gonna cut two 6-inch sections. There's one. There's two. One of them, you're gonna leave alone, not do anything. The second one, you wanna draw a vertical line, lengthwise, not widthwise, and saw it right down the middle. Okay, there your rest. I'm gonna flatten that out. Nice and clean, nice and flat. So you got these two, you're gonna stick them right together, right at the bottom face. So it looks like that. And then take a couple clamps. So now we have kind of our L, and we have space to put screws here, here, and here. I would highly advise pre-drilling before you join these with screws. Any of the screws kind of barely sticking out, just take your farrier's rasp or your metal file, kind of flatten that out. We've got our two joined 2x4s here. Might be hard to see, but we're gonna cut out this notch all the way through. Same notch right here, boom, and then over. The reason that we cut this piece and that we have this little L is because right here is where the bow is going to sit whenever this whole thing is up on the wall. So next thing we need to do is secure this. Pre-drill first. This is where the bow is going to sit and it'll run this way. This backside will be connected to the wall that we mount it to. So on the front side, we just need to measure a bunch of grooves running down this thing that we can, once the bow is in here, stretch the string down and then tuck the string into whatever measurement groove we're at. And then you just progressively, as you get further and further into the tillering process, you would just lower it, lower it, lower it. So you're pulling and causing more elastic action of the bow as you're going farther and farther down until you get to whatever your desired draw length is. Every inch we have a line running all the way down to I think 31 inches. Take your saw. If you have a circular saw, this will be super quick. I have two and both of them don't work, but whatever. I'm gonna use a handsaw and just kind of go through. We're gonna make lines on every pencil mark that we have per inch, and then we're gonna come back and do a diagonal so that there's a little slit in there where we can pull that bowstring and tuck it in. I'll show you guys what I mean. So I was doing all this by hand and it was taking forever. And then I remembered there are power tools in the world. Sawzall to the rescue. To mount this, just find an area where you have a stud on the wall in the garage. For me, I actually had a mud line that I could use, so it kind of gave away where the stud was. Using those kind of pocket holes that we drilled, we got 1, 2, and 3, and then we just secured it into the stud, and now it's mounted. And after we put in the pulley, which we gotta put a pulley here, and then well, I guess the pulley needs to be a little lower, and then right above the pulley, we're gonna have a scale. So that way we can see how much force we're applying. We want to make this kind of like an open C. So you want to approximate, if you were to cut kind of right here and then bend it down, it'd be an open C. I would always start with more because you can't reattach it unless you weld it. Yeah, it's like barely overlapping. So we need to make another cut and probably cut right here just so it's an open C. Not bad, guys. We might need to open that up just a little bit, and then we'll take a metal file and kind of scrape the ends so that there's no sharp edges. Not too bad. I want it to be approximately the thickness of, if I have 3 fingers kind of drawing the string back, and then a little gap. We need to make a lot more of these. Not great, not terrible. Let's compare it to the original. It lines up pretty good though, so that's nice. All right, 3 down. I'm gonna get the rest done and then we'll come back. All right, so we just finished making all these. We got 7 of them sitting here. The goal is to mimic this. So the thickness of 3 fingers plus a little bit of extra room for where the arrow is gonna go. And that's kind of shaped like a C. So we're gonna stack all these up, and then we're gonna turn them sideways like that, and we're gonna weld them all together, and then we'll grind on it and try to make it semi-appealing. It'll be like a little metal hand, and that's what we're gonna use on the tillering tree. Let's do some welding. So we just made this little piece. We took another one of those rods and just used the vise, made a little eye hole. We're gonna weld this onto the bottom. So we kind of made this little C-clamp, like supposed to imitate fingers holding the bow. So we got 30 fingers and then a little bit of room for the arrow. So we've got that thickness just right. This will latch onto the string just like this. And then when you're pulling on the tillering string, it'll be just like you're holding the bow with 3 fingers. We need a way to attach this to this. We're gonna weld that onto the bottom. Got a little metal hand. Cool. All right guys, so we wrapped up kind of making the tillering tree. Turned out really well. I'm very happy with how it turned out. This was pretty much just 2 2x4s. So you can make one of these for about $8, which is kind of amazing because function-wise, it's just through the roof. We kind of walked through all of this and how we made it with the saw cuts every inch. Let me kind of show you how it works. So this is the top, and this little ridge is where the bow goes. So we're gonna put the bow up in top. Okay, and just make sure it's centered. I have it tillered out, so to 10 inches or 15 inches. And I wanna check to make sure it's even. So I go to my 10-inch mark. You just grab the string, pull it down. And this is the approximate thickness of like 3 fingers and an arrow, plus just a hair. So this is a real good simulation for kind of holding on to that string and seeing how your bow is gonna respond. So after you do this, you kind of step back where the camera is now, and you would look, and we have kind of a grid pattern on the wall here. It's every 8 inches there's a square. And we started at 8 inches draw, so that's pretty much like brace height. And then every 8 inches, there's another square, so it's 8, 16, 24. That's what these lines are. And then the same thing, it's every 8 inches going laterally as well on the left and right. So if I'm looking at this limb tip here, and I wanna see if the bow's tillered correctly, I would look at the space between this limb tip and this line. And then I would do the same thing on this side. Let's say, okay, I've got this limb tip and this line, and it's very similar distance. And then besides just looking at those distances, you want to look at the general curvature of the bow. So 10 inches, we're golden. So this bow I've already made and tillered all the way out. So I think this one's set for 28. So now we're gonna pull it a little bit farther down and kind of do the same test. This is at 18. You're gonna kind of do the same thing. So limb tip on the left side is barely past the line, barely past this line right here, this horizontal line, barely past it. Same thing on that side, which is great. You also want to check your lateral position, so we're about 3 to 4 inches outside from the 24-inch mark. Here, we're gonna do the same thing on this side, 3 to 4 inches outside the 24-inch mark. So it's good. You just repeat that process and you keep going farther and farther down your tillering tree until you get to your desired draw length, which will be your full draw. You guys saw me spend an inordinate amount of time making this piece. I think it actually turned out pretty well, seeing that it's just, the entire thing is made out of this rod. Because we have this little C, it's like fingers, right? It's like fingers grabbing. So you put that C on there. Just make sure this is dead center, right in the middle. Because as you're pulling down, you're gonna want this hand to stay directly in the center as you're tillering it. And as you're kind of pulling the string and testing everything, you'll see what I mean in a sec when I say pull the string. If this deviates to the right or left, it's a very easy way to tell that your limbs aren't balanced and that one is bending more. That's what's causing the lateral deviation of this little metal hand. From here, it's just a couple of knots. We got some basic paracord here. We got our metal hand. Paracord, just a bunch of square knots. That one needs to be tightened. Square knot connecting to a scale. And then just another piece of paracord that's much longer that runs down through a pulley down here. This paracord goes from the scale, comes down through this pulley, and then walks out all the way until we get to our pull rod. This is just a piece of metal I had lying around. You can just do like a timber hitch, and it'll work well for pulling. I'm gonna show you guys how this setup works. So what I'm gonna be doing on my end is just pulling this. That's how you exercise the limbs, and that's how you kind of like check out your progress as you're going. Because you wanna, every time you take meat off of that bow on the belly side, which is the bottom side of this bow, you're gonna wanna exercise the bow and kind of pull this just regularly, just so that you can see kind of, not the damage done, but what you've done. Because immediately after you take the wood off, if you haven't exercised it, the limb's just gonna stay. So it might lead to, if you're not exercising it every time you take some wood off, you could take way too much off, and then you go to exercise it and you got a hinge, or you just got a weak limb or something like that. Say that I wanna check this out, grab the handle, gotta take a stance, especially with a heavier bow, and then just pull slowly. I'm gonna pause right here, because that's when the limb tips hit that 8-inch mark, and they're both right at 8 inches, looks good. And the scale is reading 35 pounds at 17 inches. Because you have to look at where the metal hand is on the string. So we're a little bit below that 16-inch line for the metal hand. Now let's go a little farther. And we're at 50 pounds at 23 inches. And this floor is really slippery, so I'm not gonna pull it anymore. But if you were to look at the limb tips, you can see that both of them are just outside the vertical 24-inch markers, and they're very even underneath that 8-inch marker lateral. Super simple to make. The whole thing together, it was 2 2x4s. I had the rod laying around, I had the scale, which was old. It's just an analog scale. So all in all, I mean, I already had the little metal rod that I made the metal hand out of. It was like $8 to make this whole thing. It's a great project. A lot of bows are coming, and this helps you get them super accurately tillered. So you're gonna have that perfect balance from limb to limb, which really minimizes the amount of stress on each limb, and it also minimizes your chances of breaking a bow that you've worked really hard on. I know I didn't really go over these two 2x4s. The purpose of these, it's not structural. It's because when you pull this, you're pulling your line down, and you're applying force. Before I had these two boards on, the scale would get to this point, and then it would start twisting. So the whole reason for these boards is so that when you're pulling down, the scale stays with the face pointing towards you. I hope this whole thing helps, and see you guys next time.